Hi, everybody. I'm David Belsky, the CEO and founder of FlowerHire. On today's Sunset session, I have a very special interview. Peter Barsoom, the CEO and founder of 1906. Peter, thank you for joining.
David, it's a pleasure to be seeing you today.
Can I just tell you something? Like 10 years plus as a founder and CEO of a branded products company in the cannabis industry, you're a unicorn. So few people end up making it 10 years on that entrepreneurial journey for your type of product. So kudos to you. Truly. Did anyone ever point that out to you? Where were you when you realized, man, this has been 10 years? Were you able to celebrate that win?
Well, typically they say that when they also say I'm a glutton for punishment. So,
Same.
far smarter and far smarter people have decided to go elsewhere to take their commercial kind of drive. But there are those of us who are stubborn as bulls, as they say. Yeah, it's 10 years. I sit here and I'm like, wow. Um, but I feel I couldn't be more excited actually. Like I'll tell you, it's been 10 years of a lot of challenges, no doubt, and it's been sad to see so much of the industry suffering, especially for something that consumers love. Like we have a big disconnect. Here we have a product in a category that consumers love, that's becoming
Love,
legal. Like,
passionately love.
yeah, why is it so difficult just to survive? We're not even talking about thriving, just to survive. And I don't know of any other industry or category like this. I mean, you think about it, whether it be sodas, supplements, AI, any industry that has got such a strong consumer desire, there are far more success stories, and not everybody does well. But here we have an industry where universally it's like everybody has scars that are still open.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And it's not a homogenous industry at the same time. It's like for the 80-90% of companies that are, struggling to make a payroll, you have 10% of companies that are doing okay and reinvesting back into the business. And it's at different times and different states and different regulatory regimes and federal versus state, and there's so many different aspects to this. It's like you're witnessing history if you take a step back and observe it, but it doesn't make sustaining in this industry is the win to be part
Yeah.
of that, right? At the end of the day, I know you're very humble, but 1906, in my observation, the past several years has really sort of, the future is brighter than it's ever been, based on sort of your consumer following and your revenues. So look forward to hearing all about that. Talk to me, 1906. You've again 10 years ago, when you started 1906, why was it you decided to take your entrepreneurial, side of your brain into developing this company?
Yeah. So I had spent 20 years in finance. I quit in 2014 to think about what I wanted to do next that was more entrepreneurial. And um, cannabis had been now 1 year legalized. Went out and I was looking at a number of different sectors and went out to Colorado in January of 2015. And it was amazing what I saw back then. And what I saw is like, wow, people can buy legal cannabis. And I had a relationship with cannabis when I was in college, and then I stopped using it in my 20s, 30s, and early 40s because it wasn't working for me. I was finding myself to be anxious. I was finding myself to be unpredictable in its effects. And so it wasn't a substance that I could enjoy. And granted, I have a need for a high degree of control. That's my constitution. That's who I am. So cannabis wasn't like the substance of choice for me. until in my a few years before we started 1906 when I got reintroduced to cannabis in a lower dose format. I was a flower smoker. I smoked spliffs, and it was like, okay, now this is possible because the shit's too strong. 30% weed is just way too strong for most people. And I don't want to just take
Most
one puff.
functioning adults with things to do.
Yeah. And I actually enjoy smoking a good joint. Like why do I want just one puff and be blasted? And then what, put it down and then I have to light up and it's like, no, I want to enjoy a joint, like a full joint with friends and other stuff like that. So um, what worked for me is that just the high dose options that the market was delivering were just didn't work for my constitution. And when I went to Colorado and I looked at the dispensary, and it's like, wow, everything here is just all about how to get fucked up as cheap as possible. And I didn't recognize myself in any of the products that were being offered in the dispensary. And so that's when my co-founder and I were like, okay, we know we love the plant. We know how powerful this is, but this doesn't speak to us, wouldn't speak to my mom, wouldn't speak to a lot of other people. So we're like, let's create a company that speaks to people like us who want to use cannabis responsibly, safely, functionally. And frankly, we created the category of functional cannabis. So it's great to see where we are 10 years now because now you have different dosage options, you have fast acting, you have the ability to decide how it's going to make you feel. So I love it that the category we created is now bigger than us.
Uh, well, to define a category for a product that people have a relationship with and perception of and invent that is no easy task. And we'll definitely talk about, you also invented effect-based marketing in a lot of ways for the cannabis product and still do it extremely well though with actual science behind it, which we'll talk more about. But talk about the current products and form factors for 1906 that because you've gone through some iterations, but now you got some stuff that's really consumers are really enjoying.
Yeah. And innovation has been core to who we are. And what stays at the center of focus for everything we do is the customer. We have a relentless focus on the customer and a relentless focus on excellent execution in everything we do. Um, that doesn't mean we hit the bullseye, proverbial bullseye every time, but we have a very sharp focus on what the bullseye is. So, with that mission about functional cannabis, it starts with the question of how do you want to feel first? And then, secondly, how you want to consume. We have it all wrong in the cannabis industry. We start with do you want a vape? Do you want a flower? Do you want to eat? And it's like, no, 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 no. That's not the way consumers think. And that's not the way consumers, yes, that's not the way consumers think. So for us, we started with chocolates, we launched our pills, the pills took off. Now we're finally entering into the gummy game. So we launched our first gummy a few months ago. It's been doing phenomenally well. And we introduced our latest innovation a few weeks ago, which is a cannabis beverage, which I'm super excited about because we think, beverages are the future for a whole host of reasons that we can talk about. So we've launched something that we think will revolutionize social drinking, our relationship to cannabis, and frankly, how and where we consume cannabis going forward.
If you look at your marketing specifically and the effects in which your products are going for, sleep, bliss, chill, boost, genius, love, go. And then you even acknowledge, which I love, that you're not sure where to start. Here's the sampler pack, right? Because at the end of the day, different formulations and things respond to people differently, right?
Yeah.
Because we're all humans and have our own endocannabinoid system. But I do love the effect-based marketing and there's in the breadth of the effects that you're trying to target for consumers because those are all things that I like that resonate with me. Like, yeah, I want to be a genius. I do like love. I do want to chill sometimes. I'm just trying to be happy. I need to go to bed. I'm trying to get some energy. Like those things really do resonate with me. So talking about the science behind, your sort of effect based, formulations.
Yeah, thanks, David. And we um we start first with the question of like, what is it a consumer wants? And we looked at, okay, what are all the reasons why people walk into a dispensary, or what are all the reasons why people historically have used cannabis? And it's about energy, focus, feeling happier, reducing anxiety, feeling more in the mood with oneself or with your partner, sleep, and then our most recent new experience, pain. On the hemp side, it's called relief in the dispensary side. So those are all the major reasons why people use cannabis. And it's covers 80-90% of that. There's one other category that we are going to be launching something next year, which is around women's health. And I would say once we have that set of experiences, we've covered most of the reasons why people generally use cannabis. Everything we do is very science based. So then we start with the question of, okay, if what you want is energy, we ask ourselves and we ask customers, what makes for a energy experience that you would want? And then we craft that by using other plant medicines along with cannabis that work synergistically with your endocannabinoid system to deliver that experience. So let me give you a specific example. Energy. um, Caffeine is the best central nervous stimulant known to man. That's why billions of people use it every single day because it works. If you want energy, what is the first thing that most people go to? Caffeine. What is the second thing that most people go to? Caffeine, right? You have to go actually pretty far down the list before you really find alternatives. Now, caffeine is great, but it has three major side effects. The crash that you feel afterward, which sucks. Sometimes you can feel jitters, and sometimes you could feel like an accelerated heart rate and you're too amped up. Um, so what we do is then we pair caffeine with three other plant medicines. L-theanine to reduce the jitters, alpinia galanga to eliminate the crash, and theobromine, which is a vasodilator to increase your capacity so you have blood flow across the whole body. So now you have a energetic experience based upon the science of how we know dietary supplements work in our body, because there's a lot more research about these than there is about caffeine. So we take that same concept of the entourage effect in flower, but apply it in a very
Superfoods and
systematic way.
supplements.
Yeah, in a very systematic way of how each experience works. And so that's how like every one of our different experiences is scientifically engineered to give you the best possible energy experience, and like I said, we rely on more than just cannabis because we have a lot more science
Yeah.
around the rest of these dietary supplements and plant medicines.
Well, you mentioned the entourage effect, and so obviously each of these different products. You were talking about Boost, I believe, just now, but Genius and Love and all those other ones. They do not only they have different potential supplements and or superfoods that have shown efficacy towards those effects, but different cannabinoid
Correct.
combinations and shrinks and that are also shown to have certain benefits for the majority of people in reaching those desired effects or outcomes.
Yeah, exactly. So and as the science of cannabis advances, then that gives us more. So as an example, we just launched our product for pain. It's called Pain on the direct to consumer side. It's called Relief on the dispensary side. Now, it took us 9 years to get this product to market. Pain is one of the biggest reasons why people walk into a dispensary.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that outside of topicals, there are very few products that are really engineered to specifically target pain or pain relief. You're just told,
I've seen zero. I've seen
yeah,
zero.
there are some things that are called, recover, whatever, but there's very little science behind it. And so you're just told as a consumer, either take lots of THC or take lots of CBD, or maybe you combine them with both. And pain is complex. It affects your mood. It affects your appetite. It affects inflammation in your body. It impacts your sleep. It affects your nerve health. You actually feel the physical sensation of pain. So there are six kind of major elements associated with pain. And what we did then is craft a product that combines six different cannabinoids, plus an amazing plant medicine, boswellia, to deliver full body pain, full body and full mind pain relief. Nothing like this has ever been done before in terms of scientifically engineered, and this represents the most advanced cannabinoid-based pain therapies that has existed up until now.
I mean, I love that you slow played that one in terms of like waiting to be confident with the release as much as you could, considering that you also knew that people went into the dispensaries for pain. Like I think of the own story of my, my parents and even grandparents, and their openness and hope for medical cannabis to help them. So I think that sounds like a great product, and I didn't realize that you had created that. But you also, one of the things you mentioned, that I think is worth talking about a little bit is this idea of like you launched in Colorado and then other regulated markets. Um, you know, when I say regulated, I'm saying THC regulated markets, adult use or medical, where the states have sanctioned adult use and medical programs and licensed retail operators, which you purchase those things and track and trace and supply chain and all those things in the regulated THC industry. And then, what's been realized through some court cases and then open wide in the last several years is this idea of the Farm Bill compliant, intoxicating hemp, right? And now e-commerce and other things that opens up, that specifically edible and consumable, non-smokable products were the first to kind of start seeing, but now you're even seeing like THCA flower going everywhere. And so, talk to me about, you know, the split between those two markets and sort of the benefits of distributing your brand through those two different channels.
Yeah. You're right to note that this is a emergent phenomena. Most people still don't even know
Don't
that
even
they have
realize.
access. Yeah, don't even know that they have access to legal cannabis. David, I came into the industry because I believed that cannabis should be accessible. I believed you can make it safe and I believed you can make it effective. But fundamentally, it should be accessible. Our name, 1906, is the year that started the prohibition of cannabis. So it's a reminder every day when we wake up and we know what our name is, it's 1906, that what we're fighting for is the end of prohibition, the end of locking people up, the end of destroying particularly Black and brown communities because of a racist war on drugs. So we should be celebrating the fact that the Farm Bill in 2018 allows us to give consumers access to cannabis in ways that they have never had before. Look, I can go online. I can use my credit card. I can have it shipped. U.S. Postal Service will deliver it to my house, and I'm not going to have a cop showing up. I'm not going to be afraid that this is untested. This is safe, tested, legal product. Like, why did we come into this industry? Isn't this why we came into it? Now you can go into a liquor store and get THC beverages. So for us, that's why I'm more excited about the opportunities for consumers and for ourselves in the industry than ever before, because we finally have a way of running a normal business
Right.
and meeting consumers where they want to be met. Not everybody wants to walk into a
No.
dispensary. Not everybody has access to a dispensary. So what are we supposed to do? Like say sorry, go and
Go find someone on the
suffer.
street to help you out. Go find someone
Yeah,
on the street to help you out, right?
yeah,
No.
or suffer, even worse, suffer,
Yeah.
continue in pain, continue without sleep, continue in, a situation where you're not tapped into your sensual self and you're not tapped into the best of your partner. So, um, yeah, with that comes challenges, but that's the nature of the industry. So I'm so excited about the fact that now hundreds of millions of consumers can access safe, legal cannabis for the first time ever. And it's something we as an industry should be celebrating, not fighting over exactly, because this doesn't go in through a dispensary, therefore we shouldn't allow it.
Yeah. So like you find products in your local dispensary in a dozen or so states, but if you go to what is it, 1906.shop, you can actually get directly shipped to your house in 40 different states, your products currently.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
exactly.
where do you see this going in terms of how it all is reconciled at some point into this sort of federal THC regime, right? Or could it just be this weird because it's cannabis for another decade or two? That's where my head is. But what do you think?
Um, when was the last time the federal government did something that made sense?
And not my lifetime.
Exactly. So, reconciliation, I think that it's not going to happen. I mean, if you think about alcohol, alcohol was prohibited and we ended the prohibition of alcohol a long, long time ago. You still have dry counties. You still have in Pennsylvania, you can only buy liquor in a state-run liquor store. So we have a patch. In some states, you can buy liquor on Sundays. Some states you can't. In some places, you can buy beer in
Some
a
states it's 7 p.m. is your cutoff,
yeah.
right? Like South
And
Carolina as an example. Some states it's 10 or whatever.
some states you can get shots in a gas station. So I think we're going to have just a dizzying patchwork of regulations covering cannabis. And I don't see it ever becoming quote unquote reconciled. Uh, Alcohol is a patchwork of different federal rules and different state rules. And guess what? People still drink. It works. And I think that's what's going to happen with cannabis.
Um, off duty is sort of, you mentioned beverages earlier. Off duty is kind of a stepping stone potentially for 1906 and the brand to get fully behind sort of the we'll call it intoxicating beverage space, right? Talk to me about off duty and it's sort of launch and distribution and your thoughts long term on beverages.
We love the beverage market first. Like if uh, there are three legal psychoactive substances: caffeine, nicotine, and alcohol. Right? Those are the three legal. Two out of those three we consume in a liquid. So, we start with people love using liquids to change their state. That's not going to change. Um, what we're excited about now is that I think we've if not solved, at least we've come close to solving the problem of social drinking. The THC seltzers and THC in a can are great. Now we have like, hundreds of different flavors. We have so many different SKUs of how you want to drink flavored seltzer. It reminds me of when gummies first came into the market, right? Here is weed coated with sugar. So now we have weed coated in seltzer water with some flavors. Um, it doesn't solve what we think is one of the big problems, which is I can't carry a can into a bar, into a restaurant. I don't necessarily want that particular flavor. I don't necessarily want that volume of liquid. I have to drink an 8 ounce or a 12 ounce. So it's very limiting the that consumption factor. And what we wanted to do is create the vodka of cannabis, which is just like you can have a vodka Red Bull, you can have a martini espresso, or you can have a martini, you can have sorry, an espresso martini. You can do a lot of things with vodka. Similarly, we wanted to create something that gives consumers and so off duty is a 3 milliliter sachet. It's about this big, super thin. You could stick it in your pocket and you open it up and you could just pop it into any liquid. It's a liquid, so you don't need a spoon, unlike powders. It's flavorless. So put it in your matcha tea. You can even bake with it. And now you have cannabis in your pocket that allows you to be discreet, be portable, and turn any liquid into a cannabis cocktail.
And And I love that as the alternative, and I love the use cases of it. Do you think people will mix it with alcohol?
Of course they will.
And I think it's so funny. Everyone's different. Every human's different in terms of how they react to the plant, everything like that. You know, for me, like I'm okay with the mixing. Some people are not, but it's just another again, it's another way to consume the product and the molecule specifically that's in a form factor that's more recognized by more people. And you know, obviously, you know, I love the innovation. You know, and
Yeah.
it's the same effect based formulas is what you're saying that go into those as well. In you know, right into off duty.
Well, we launched off duty. That's I would call that like version 1.0 of that. We're then going to be launching our experiences in that product format. So that way you can have go, you can have
Yeah,
bliss, or you can have chill in that product format. And you know, go is like vodka, Red Bull, all in one, for instance.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so it's the other thing that makes it exciting is not just the product format, but where people can find it. I was just in Texas a few weeks ago. I was blown out of my mind, David. I went into a Total Wine and I went into Specs, and there was like four bays of cannabis beverages at every single register. There was a Nowadays or a Pamos little shot. And I was like, oh my God, this is like, this is exactly what we want. This is a place that sells 21 and older products. This is where this belongs. Like, we already have a system whereby if you're 21 and older, you can buy something. The whole idea of creating dispensaries is sort of like an anachronism. Like, we already had a system that works for distributing 21 and older products, collecting tax on it. I mean,
Works
in my
well.
mind, yeah,
Works
it
really
works great.
well. Yeah.
Let's use it. Why are we reinventing the wheel?
Yeah, it's an unpopular opinion if you've invested tens of millions of dollars in cultivating cannabis, you know. But at the same time, you know, it's common sense. There's a framework that's working, and ultimately, one of the things about the widespread access that we've seen now emerge in the last several years is that like society is doing just fine. You know, and if anything, like there's certain metrics like overdoses and things like that that are going in the right direction. Like it's good things are coming with access to safer forms of medicine and recreation. I have three questions here. Changing gear here. Obviously, FlowerHire. We do recruiting and executive search, largely focused on the cannabis and regulated hemp space. But when you hire people to work for you at 1906, and you've got a great team of it's scrappy and high potential, high capability human beings around you, what do you look for when you hire people that are the type of traits that are successful at a business like 1906?
Um, we look for, so we have a no asshole policy. So one of the things that we look for and we index on is people who are, you know, collaborative, who can work in a team environment. That doesn't mean there isn't tension. We actually we want people who are comfortable with tension as well. So we want people who are collaborative and who are comfortable with tension. And that's the nature of how you get to the best place or the best ideas is you got to be okay with that tension. Um, so we look for people who are collaborative. We look for people who are comfortable with tension. The third thing we look for is vulnerability. Is are you able to be vulnerable and take feedback? If that doesn't mean thick skin, and because thick skin is sometimes meant to be like something doesn't penetrate, and I want to be very clear, like it's not about having a thick skin. Vulnerability is actually about having a thin skin and being okay with being thin skinned. So vulnerability is something that's really important in the people that we're looking for. Are you willing to be feel exposed? Are you willing to be acknowledged when you're feeling exposed? Are you able to express when things aren't going well? And are you able to take feedback, you know, about when things aren't going well? Or does it devolve into a lot of blame and accusations? Uh, the other thing we look for is grit. Can you, you know, do you have grit? because you can't be successful in this industry unless you just have that kind of that grit. And then the last thing that the last thing that we look for is or at least we try and understand, I would say, is comfort with risk. It's not that we want everybody who's risk taking or everybody who's risk seeking. You need to have a broad distribution about your tolerance for risk. So we try and we don't index on any specific there, but we try and understand kind of people's risk tolerance so that we can be sure we have them in the right position. And then the last thing is sort of like the test of, do I want to hang out with this person? Like, the plane has been delayed and I'm sitting at an airport for the next few hours. Is this a human being that
Is
I
this the
want?
worst moment of my life, or am I actually going to enjoy myself?
Exactly. Like if you're just not a pleasant person, like go work elsewhere.
Yeah. Well, I think I love the no assholes policy. Um, I think a couple things. Obviously, when you're recruiting folks from outside of the industry, which are sometimes necessary for sure, like the risk tolerance is huge. You got to point things out to folks that they're going to figure out at some point during the decision making process, and that's one of the things we do when we recruit from outside of the industry. You said vulnerability. I say humility, and I think it kind of goes hand in hand. Like there's a way of like I can take feedback. I realize that sometimes my shit stinks and I could get better at doing my job. And I appreciate the feedback that's coming from a constructive place. Right. Like, and there's also a humility around like appreciating the legacy of, the prohibition, and being involved in a company that's trying to be a profitable business in the wake of that. Right. Like so I do, uh, love what you just shared about those, the aspects. You know, is there advice you would give to somebody like, is cannabis the career right for you? If somebody, a lot of people, it's unbelievable. I've been doing FlowerHire for 8 years. It went from stigma, this career suicide, to everybody wants to work in cannabis. That doesn't mean they're the right people or the right fit, or cannabis is the right fit for them as a career. What type of advice would you tell somebody looking at cannabis as a career? Be ready for, you better be okay with, or don't do it if this is important.
Yeah. One of the things that's nice is that cannabis is also a very inclusive industry, and that struck me kind of on the first. I was in finance. Finance has a particular narrow range of people who do well and are successful in that, or who go into finance as well, right? It's pretty. I don't want to say it's a total square, but it's squarish. Um, Cannabis has attracted all different kinds of freaks and all different types of suits as well. And it's kind of nice to have this inclusive umbrella. So, what I would say to somebody is figure out who you are first, know yourself, and then figure out what it is and where it is that you want to work. If you're somebody who has a need for a high degree of control, doesn't like likes things that are really stable, great. We have roles for you. There are positions where you can do that and thrive. In here, if you're somebody who is entrepreneurial, has a high need for a high degree of risk, willing to lose it all, great. There is a role for you as well. Because we need to attract the best and the brightest of all different types. But I guess if there's one thing you should know is that if you're somebody who can't adapt to change, it's not the right industry for you. Because even if you are the compliance officer and making sure every rule is checked, guess what? There's a lot of gray areas and
A
things
lot of it.
change as well. And things change. So um,
Constantly. Constantly. Well,
yeah,
I look at it like the thing that we always talked about was like, if you don't know that you're a startup person, like you should figure that out first before trying to work in this industry. It's
yeah,
it's too much to take on, right? That's where you get some of the resiliency parts. That's where you get, the predictability parts. Okay, last thing, advice. Let's say entrepreneur. Maybe they come from finance. They want to go out. on their own and start a business, whether it's a brand, ancillary, whatever, in cannabis or related to cannabis or intoxicating hemp, what advice would you give that person?
Well, part of me is like, put your money
No,
somewhere.
are you saying gonna
Yeah,
say
so
no?
yeah, yeah.
How can you not think that? I mean, that'd be my first answer. It's
Are
my
you
first answer.
sure? Like, are you? I mean, that's the first one is like, are you really sure? I mean, the best way to make $1 million is to start with 10 and go into the cannabis industry, and you'll be left with 1 million. Um, yeah, it's it's honestly hard for me to say, yeah, entrepreneurs just come right in because this is a very difficult industry to make money. Um, if you have a passion project, that's great, and you're on a mission, then you have a different objective. But if it's about, if part of the motivation is commercial success, um, it's still unproven, this industry, on being able to be a commercial success. So if you're okay with losing it all, come right in because that's more than likely the outcome.
More than likely.
Yeah, more than
I think
likely.
I think it's fair. But again, like if you can do it over a long period of time and you can recalibrate your definition of success to surviving is thriving, and it's okay with you for a decade, you know, consider it because you're so compelled by the opportunity and the plan, right?
Yeah.
Um, Peter Barsoom, thank you very much for joining us today. Peter Barsoom, 1906. Again, 1906.shop.
Yep, 1906.shop, try off duty. We want feedback. I mean, that's the other thing. This is an innovative new beverage format. We want feedback. So please go ahead and try it.
Give them feedback. They want it. They want to hear. They actually give you a phone number on their website to call for with feedback as well, which you don't see very often.
Yep.
Peter, thank you very much.
Thank you, David.